countdown.
Oh, sorry. Okay, there we go. Late countdown. There it is. Okay, here. Hello, Kyle. Welcome back. Congratulations on your baby as well. For any listeners, you had a huge news. But back at it and ready to go. And couldn't be at a better time because I have this question that's been bugging me. Everyone keeps talking about the old playbooks being dead. They're all dead, old playbooks, but no one's offering any suggestions on what the new playbooks are going to look like, at least not at a concrete level. So today I want to start with the arrival of AI, what will happen to the role of an SDR? And there's probably no better person to talk to about this. So really quickly, what's your experience with SDRs?
I've been around the block, Nathan. I got my start in SaaS technology sales as an SDR. I didn't even know what SDR stood for, but I just wanted to work in tech. And I was like, okay, yeah, it sounds great. So I started as an SDR back in 2013, and I ended up building a team of SDRs to about 70 or so people at my first company as we scaled to about 110 million in revenue. And then at my second SaaS company, I also led the SDR team. I think we had about 40 or so SDRs at the time. So that took us all the way up until the end of 2023. And now here we are in 2024. And I have no plans on hiring an SDR at Copy.ai. And so we can talk more about that and more about why. But I'll pause there, see if you have any follow-ups first.
I was going to say, is that weird for you to say? Did you ever, let's say 2 years ago, do you think you would have been standing here now saying that you saw no need to hire an SDR?
It's very weird to say. And the reason it's weird to say is because the work is essential. You can hold these two things in your mind and they are not contradictory. One, the SDR role is going away. Two, outbound is not going away. So that's really, really important to understand. And again, I'm going to pause before I go on this huge monologue, but I think that's something we need to unpack for people.
Yeah, and why do you think those two terms, outbound and SDR, have almost become synonymous to the point where people think, well, if one goes, so does the other?
It's a really good question, and I don't know. I think it's just somewhat lazy thinking or lazy analysis by a lot of people. And a lot of people will say, well, our outbound engine is inefficient, therefore outbound isn't working, therefore it needs to go away. And that's not necessarily the right way to think about things. In my view, the right way to think about things is outbound used to be viewed as more of a direct sales channel. I'm going to reach out to somebody, they're going to respond, we're going to start a sales conversation. Now, outbound functions much more as a marketing channel. It's like a billboard. I want people to get brand awareness the right way through outbound channels, and outbound is the best way to make sure that either the right message gets in front of the right person at the right account at the right time. Any other form of marketing is really hard to do that. So that's still very valuable. Now, does it mean that somebody's going to see my email, respond, and buy my product the next day? Probably not, because the buying cycle is just fundamentally different than it was 10 years ago. So outbound is still important. It just should be more of a marketing function than a sales function. And it doesn't require the hyper specialization that it required 2 years ago because of what AI can do now for the top of funnel engine.
Okay, so let's double click really quick on the role of an SDR, and you said that is going away, though outbound is not. Let's say it's 2017. I'm your 55th SDR on the team or whatever. What does my job look like? What are my tasks? So, what are my responsibilities in a pre-Gen AI world?
So it's a really good question, Nathan, and I'm going to answer the question and toot my own horn at the same time, which is to say, part of the reason people have lost faith in outbound is because they designed the SDR role improperly. They designed it to be a button pushing role, kind of a thoughtless role where they just needed warm bodies to come in and just press send or just dial a phone or something like that. I've never designed or thought of SDR teams that way because the people that we have doing the role are people. They're smart, they're creative, they're strategic. So if you can operate that way, and we're 2017 and you're my 55th SDR, you're coming in and you're learning about the product. You're learning how to do demos. You're learning deeply about personas and their jobs to be done and their role in the hierarchy and what they care about, the metrics they're accountable for. You're learning deeply about the product, the personas, and our processes. You're learning about how to write. What is good sales copywriting? It's not easy to do. It takes some time to learn. You're learning how to do deep account research and build a point of view on the accounts that you're reaching out to. And those are the types of skills. These are sales skills we're talking about. These are business acumen type skills we're talking about. And unfortunately, a lot of organizations have completely ignored that training for their, quote unquote entry level salespeople, which has been SDRs or BDRs in the past. And so that's the training you would have gotten from me in 2017 that I think a lot of companies skip. But now a lot of that can be outsourced to AI, and we can focus our entry level sellers on a different role that frankly is more horizontal. It's broader, it has bigger impact, and it's better for the people in that role.
Let's talk about that really quick. In what ways would automating a lot of these tasks make it better for the people in that
Yeah.
role?
So 2 years ago, before the rise of generative AI, you join the SDR team. We train you on how to do an account plan. Building that account plan is hard. You have to go through, and if it's a private company that you're researching, you need to look at open job descriptions and read CEO interviews and listen to podcasts that executives have been on, and go to their website and understand their positioning. And building that account plan for somebody that's new to the job takes hours. We're talking 3 to 4 hours. Somebody who's really good at it can do it maybe in an hour or 90 minutes or something like that, but it's hard to do. Now, using AI, you can have somebody come in and architect the AI workflow that creates that research plan. So now all you have to do is put in the company URL, teach the AI what to look for, and it can generate these really comprehensive, awesome account plans in seconds instead of hours. So now the entry level salesperson, instead of it taking them 4 hours, that's half their day to build one of these account plans, they get it back in a minute, and they can be thoughtful about, where do I go from here? Who should I be reaching out to with what messaging? And so all of that time that they've reclaimed, they can use that to think about their actual sales strategy. And hopefully what this means is, instead of an SDR being hyper specialized and only responsible for prospecting and creating opportunities or setting meetings or whatever it is, hopefully your entry level salespeople are more like inside salespeople that have all of this time back, can do the prospecting and run the deal. And that's such a more efficient way to run a go to market engine that I hope it's the way that scales. And again, it's more rewarding for that salesperson because they're not getting boxed in to a narrow part of the sales function. They're getting exposure to being a full cycle seller. And that's, so it's better for everybody.
Yeah, it sounds like just leveling up the entry level positions to where they're not just teeing up the top performers anymore. They actually get the chance to become a top performer in a shorter amount of time.
That's right. Now, my fear in this, Nathan, is a lot of people will say, oh, cool. Well, I just saved my SDRs, say 20 hours a week. I'm just going to charge them with doing more, to research more accounts, send more emails, make more phone calls. And if that's what ends up happening, we're going to be back in the same position we're in now with this hyper specialization, a billion different handoffs across your pre-sales funnel. It just doesn't make sense. It's a bad prospect experience. If you can focus that reclaimed time on training your team to be real sellers, teaching them real sales acumen, teaching them about discovery and qualification, negotiation, teaching them real business acumen about, how do I communicate with executives? What are the types of things that they care about? What are the strategic initiatives that we should be selling against? If you can train them on upskilling, that's going to be the unlock for your team. It's not about just pumping out more volume and crossing your fingers and hoping some revenue comes in. It's about being really intentional at every single step of the funnel and rethinking the playbook that you used to run in the past and putting more of an onus on people to have a broader and wider impact instead of that narrow impact for different specialized components of the funnel.
Okay, so to touch on that just a little bit more, because I'm very curious. You're saying that not only the AI would be good for the SDR themselves, to become, like you said, I believe, a full cycle seller. Can that same AI be leveraged to train them? I think we talked a little about that, but I want to dive into that a little bit more. Can it actually be used to train them from your top performers, from your sales coaches, the things that they're learning? Can that knowledge somehow be packaged and then transferred to your entry level employees?
It's a great question, Nathan. And I think the answer is absolutely yes. And so what I'm really, again, fearful of is, a lot of people may hear this and say, oh, cool, I can go and automate my outbound engine. And then they go and outsource it to some company that just has like AI robots sending emails or making phone robo dials or whatever it is. You cannot outsource your strategy. And that, like, it's just such an important point. So in the past, a lot of sales teams have focused on what they call, quote unquote, replicating top performers. And with the right approach to your AI strategy, this is how you can do it. And so let's just go back to this example of building an account plan, although I understand sales is more than just building an account plan. In the past, you would have Sally, your SDR, who's the best account plan builder at your company. She would go to or lead an enablement session and train your team on how she builds an account plan. And it would be an hour long session, and 50 people are in the meeting, and they walk out of the meeting, and nobody actually knows what to do. So it's inefficient and it's ineffective. Now with AI, Sally can go and she can codify her process in the AI. So I'm Sally. Here's what I do. I look at open job descriptions. Here's what I'm looking for. So now the AI can pull out these insights. And once I have those insights, here's how I write the emails. So you can codify those best practices, codify those behaviors, and make sure that those things are being replicated across your entire sales engine. And that's how you can train the model to train your team to operate in the most efficient and most effective way.
Okay. So we started this conversation with the phrase the SDR role is going away, but outbound is certainly not. Let's say I'm a current SDR right now. I just got my first job last October, whatever. What can I do to future-proof my career?
Yeah. It's a lot of what we have already talked about, Nathan. And I'll say this is guidance or advice both for that individual SDR who may be listening to this, as well as an SDR manager or sales director or somebody like that. And the advice is invest in real sales skills, invest in real business acumen, and invest in developing true executive presence. Like these are the hard things. They're soft skills, but they're hard to learn. And because they're hard to learn, they're not replicable by AI. AI can do the high volume tasks. It can't do the high value tasks all the time. So if you are focusing on how to train yourself to execute the high value things, that's often going to be human interaction. A lot of it is psychology. A lot of it is negotiation. A lot of it is just communication strategies. You need to invest in learning on how to do those things. And that's how you're going to be able to make some sort of impact to your company. Sales is not going away. Buyers are still human. As long as buyers are human, sellers need to be human. So I don't see that changing anytime soon. And that's my hope of this truer inside sales function coming back into vogue, because it was 25 years ago before we split everything out into hyper specialized components of the funnel.
Okay, and now let's address just sales leaders, because I imagine there's quite a few who are nervous about how are we going to restructure things? Do we need to hire more SDRs this year? Do we need to cut back? How can a sales leader right now practically go and start learning about how to implement AI to codify these processes? Where's the best place for them to start?
Well, the best place to start, Nathan, is determining how much go-to-market bloat do you actually have. And as a sales leader, you need to be you need to really understand your company financial metrics. And this is a change in the way that sales leaders, I shouldn't say a change. It's more of a focus for sales leaders than it had been, in the go-go era of the zero interest rate and free cash flow. Now, or then I should say, it was growth at all costs. Let's just get more revenue in the door. It doesn't matter how expensive that revenue is for us. Investors are rewarding revenue growth. So we're going to go get revenue growth. Now, investors are rewarding efficient revenue growth. And so you can't have this bloated go-to-market organization that's just hyper-focused on bringing more revenue in, regardless of cost. You have to rein in that bloat to determine what is our customer acquisition cost. And when we land a customer, how much lifetime value, how long are we able to retain that customer, and what's the lifetime value of that customer relationship? And how do we optimize for that acquisition cost to lifetime value ratio in a way that's actually sustainable and actually attractive to investors, whether they're private investors or if you're a public company to public investors to Wall Street? You have to be able to optimize for those metrics. Then you can make the right decisions about how much personnel do we actually need? How much investment into tools do we actually need to make? How convoluted are our processes and how inefficient are they? How much are they slowing us down? And you don't have to tear everything down and, be a phoenix rising from the ashes, but you have to be really willing to think via first principles and go back to the drawing board and rebuild a lot of these playbooks that have expired and just have to be rebuilt with all of the efficiencies that AI can engender.
Oh, that's great. That's a wonderful response. And from earlier, when you said AI can do high volume but not high value, I think that's something that people really got to take home. That's huge. Thank you so much. Last question. Don't you just miss 2015 when money was free? Holy cow. That is...
It's funny you say that because it was easier, But I think it's more fun. The challenge is in figuring out the fun ways to do it, the sustainable ways to do it. The fun is in building a truly enduring company. And many you look at that cohort of companies, startups or IPOs or whatever from 2015, and there are not too many survivors that you're looking at and saying, yeah, that's a company I want to invest in. So I'm hopeful that this, frankly, more challenging environment will lead to more human creativity and more efficiency and more sustainability and more enduring, durable companies that have the real profiles, financial profiles that make for investable companies. So, yes, it was easier, but I don't miss it.
Good, good. Well, I'm excited to rewrite these playbooks with you. Thank you so much for your time and attention. And if anybody wants to contact you with further questions about SDR, GTM, how all this is changing, contact you on LinkedIn, usually the best.
That'd be great. Yeah, cool. You can track me down on LinkedIn.
All right. You're going to have some stalkers. Love it. Thank you so much, Kyle.
Thanks, Nathan.